In this lesson, we're going to continue discussing tables. If you'd like to follow along, go under the File menu to Open and scroll down in the Sample Files folder to 1102 Editing Tables Part 1 and just click Open. We're going to format and edit this table. First, how do you select parts of your table? Well, I could just go to a cell and click and drag across the cell until the entire cell is highlighted. I could also do this. Go to the top of any column and I get a downturned arrow. I could click to select that entire column. I could also click and drag to select several columns. I can do the same thing with rows by going to the left side of my table, and when I get a right-turned arrow, if I click, I'll be selecting an entire row. If I click and drag, I'll select multiple rows. Now, I noticed a couple of things about this particular table. Like, for instance, there is an extra row. If I go to the left side of that row and click, I can actually delete that row. I'm going to go under my table menu to delete row. The next thing I noticed is my cells are not very tall. Let me select the entire table by going to the upper left corner of the table, and you see that I have a diagonal arrow pointing down towards the table. If I click, I'm selecting my entire table. In the control panel, you're going to find a lot of settings for tables, being that you have a table selected. One of those settings is the height of the cells. The other one is the width of the columns. Row height is at least a certain number, which is a very small number. Watch what happens if I click the up arrow next to that cell height field. At a certain point, the cells are going to get taller. And I'm going to keep clicking until I get to a ½ inch. Now that my cells are taller, I noticed something else I don't like about the table. I actually want the type centered top to bottom within each cell. To do that, in my control panel, you can see that there is an Align Top button that is highlighted. The next one is Align Center, there's Align Bottom, and something called Justify Vertically. I'm going to choose Align Center. Now, my type is centered top to bottom in the cells. Next, I want to make my top row into a header. A header is a part of a table that if the table did not fit in a particular column or frame and needed to go to a next column or frame, the header would be repeated. So you'd be able to see what each one of those columns is. To convert this to a header, I'm going to go under my table menu to Convert Rows to Header. It looks like nothing changed, but now if my table did not fit in this frame, the header would be repeated in the next frame. Why don't we add a color to the header? If I go into my control panel, you can see in my Fill pop-up, there's currently no swatch color. If I click the little arrow to the right, I'm going to scroll down to, how about cyan? And if I click off of it, you can see that now the header is filled with cyan. Formatting type is exactly the same as formatting any other type. If I were to select my entire header by clicking to its left, I could change the type family, the type style. Maybe I want it to be regular. Let me do that. I preferred it as bold. Why don't we go back to bold? So it is exactly the same as formatting any type. Couple other things I want to do to this table. How about I select the entire table by going to its upper left-hand corner and just clicking when I see that diagonal arrow. And I'm going to go under my table menu to Table Options. And you can see that I can go into Table Setup right here, or alternating row strokes. So I can change my strokes row to row. I can alternate them. Alternating column strokes. And there's something called alternating fills. Why don't we choose that? I want to choose an alternating pattern. So my rows will change from color to color and back again from color to color. It's going to set up a pattern. How about every other row? And you can see already, even though it's highlighted, exactly what's happening. It's making every other row black at 20%, and then the next row has no color for the next one row. But what if I didn't want the first row to be black? Or for that matter, maybe I didn't want the color to be black. How about I choose any other color from my swatches panel? And it's going to use that color as a 20% tint. But I really don't want my first row to be yellow. I want to skip that row so it remains with no color in it. So I'm going to click my up arrow next to skip first one row. The next row right now is going to be filled with none, no color. But what if I had something behind, a background behind this table, and I didn't want to see the background through my cells? I would have to choose a color. I could choose paper, which is white in InDesign, and now it is filled in with that paper swatch. Let me click OK just to see how we did. I'm going to click off of my table to deselect it, and you can see everything is exactly the way I set it up. But I see another problem. I'm going to click off of my table to make sure I don't have an insert point anywhere, and I'm going to hit my W key. And I just wanted to show you that there are black strokes. If I reselect the body cells of my table, which is everything except for the header, or if there was a footer, I wouldn't want to select that either for this. I want to get rid of the strokes, the horizontal strokes between my alternating filled cells. I don't think I really need them anymore. Well, you can see in the control panel, now that I have cells selected, it has a proxy that represents the strokes in my table, in the selected cells of my table. This is the outside of my selection on top, so it's that top stroke. This is the side outside stroke. This is the other left side outside stroke, and this is the bottom stroke of my selected cells. These are the interior strokes. What if I wanted to get rid of my horizontal strokes? Any of the highlighted strokes in the proxy are the strokes that are actually selected. Those are not the strokes I want. I'm going to right-click on the proxy and watch what happens. I'm going to choose Clear All, so nothing is selected. Only what is selected in the proxy will actually be changed if I make a change. So let me click on my interior horizontal strokes. So the horizontal strokes at the top of my selection and the bottom will not be changed. I just want to go into the stroke panel for just a second. So you can see in the stroke panel itself, it also has that stroke proxy because I have table cells selected. Now, all I have to do is click the down arrow next to weight so it becomes 0. Let me get my stroke panel out of the way and just deselect my table by clicking off to the side of my page. And you can see I still know where my rows are because of the alternating fills. So you can see how you can simply customize the look of your entire table in a matter of minutes. We're going to continue talking about editing and formatting tables in the next lesson.